Hello and welcome to the Jouzu Gamers podcast with me, James.
And me, Erik.
And today we have a special episode partially to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of one of Erik's many businesses in his Japanese business empire, and that is his bar Subterra. But before we get on to that, why don't you take us back to the beginning and tell us how your business endeavors began in Japan?
So I came back to Japan 2019, did a few part-time jobs, did English teaching and stuff, and ended up Corona happened and I don't want to teach English anymore, so I wanted to do a cafe. And then with some money that I've saved up, I was able to open a cafe up in Shinsaibashi in Namba de Tombori. They're very synonymous with each other, so as long as you search for one, it's pretty much like all combined together. But so I have a coffee shop, cafe, bar thing. It's really hard to explain because I do kind of like everything, but we do sell mainly coffee. Our main product is coffee for sure. If you want to talk about product, right? So I did that in 2021, and that's it's been 3.5 years. That was in May was when I opened. And then last year, a year and a half ago, I got an opportunity to be partners with two other people to open up a cocktail bar. So we opened that exactly a year ago. That was August 25th. That was when our first year anniversary. So that was... right, that was 1 year ago. And so right now I have the cafe, running that under my own name as a sole proprietor, and I'm there occasionally now. I have enough staff to kind of run everything, but I'm really just running around anyways. And then the cocktail bar, we have two other owners, so we have 3 people running it. And we do also have a podcast on that one too. But that's another thing that we started last week actually. So we just had our 1 year anniversary last week, and it's this past month and a half. It's been so goddamn busy. I want to cuss, but yeah, I want to swear. It's been so busy, and I'm about to go to Taiwan in tomorrow. So I have to do 2 weeks worth of work in 3 days. And I'm definitely really, really behind. But, so other than that, I do also consulting, marketing mainly for foreign businesses or even Japanese businesses that kind of want to get into the market or are already established in the market. Also have a storybook cafe that I recently partnered with someone else to acquire, and that's still in its infancy phase, so there's not much to talk about it right now. But yeah,
and going back to the Cafe LA, which was the first one, so what inspired you to start a cafe? Because I mean it is quite, there are a lot of cafes and a lot of bars, so what was it that made you think I can get into this market and do something different with it?
So there is 2 aspects to it. The first one was I really like boba. I'm from LA. I'm from Chinatown. But boba is very much a trend here in Japan. So coffee is definitely the drink of choice if you're going to be out and drinking and stuff right now. So I can't survive on selling boba, so I decided to really just shift my focus and do coffee. And that was something that's I can now create something that's a community hub, based around coffee, based around people, based around local community and all that stuff. So that was one. The business aspect of it was I can't do boba, so I did coffee. And I didn't want to only do coffee because I know a lot of people don't just drink coffee. They might like alcohol more, or they might want matcha, they might want like a lemonade. So instead of really just being like a specialty coffee shop and just be like, we only sell coffee, we kind of sell a little bit of everything. So there's always going to be something for everyone. Uh, the other aspect of it is very much like, well, I guess there's two more, but the main one is I am Chinese American. So if I was in America, I kind of say this spiel to everyone, but it is very much true, and I think a lot of people do resonate with it. Is I am Chinese American, born and raised in LA, but even there, where there's a large community of Chinese people, Chinese Americans, whether it's like second generation, third generation, almost like fourth, fifth generations, um, no matter where I go, it will still kind of feel there's still some aspect of I'm too Chinese to be American, or I'm too Asian, I'm still not American. So there's really, I do belong in LA. You know, that's what I tell people. Like, I'm from LA, born and raised, and people do are able to tell because the way I talk and all that stuff. But in Japan, I am too American to be here in Japan. And I'm not considered to be someone who has fully assimilated. I speak mostly in English. I can speak Japanese, obviously, but like just the culture wise, in terms of how to interact with people, it's a little bit more, for lack of a better word, more superficial. There's Everybody's kept at arm's length. It's a little different in Osaka. Is a little bit more casual. If you're in like Tokyo, you can definitely feel that, but in Osaka is a little bit more casual. So I do like Osaka a little bit more, or definitely a lot more. So in America, I am too Chinese to be American, and in Japan, I am too American. Right? Regardless of whether I'm Chinese or not, I'm just too American. So really, I just wanted to create a space where I can kind of belong, really like a nook for myself. So if you ever been to, well, James, you go every week, and you're gonna be there soon, but like it's like the materialization of my hobbies and my personality. It's like once I walk in, it's like this is where I belong. Like no one can kick me out. It is my place, you know. But everything there is I built by hand. The only thing I didn't do is maybe like the electricals and plumbing, but I really like built pretty much everything myself. Never do it again, but I'll never do it again. But it was fun for that one project. Yeah, but yeah, so it's just the sense of belonging, creating my own community, creating a place for myself, and then extending that to other people, right? Like whether it's my staff or whether it's my customers, I want them to feel like they can just sit back, relax, talk to people, and it's inclusive. It's like sense of belonging. It's safe, and like all those things we're there to support you if you're like a tourist, or whether you're like a new local, we're there to give you information, or we'll recommend you places and all that stuff. So that's really like my initial thought when I built that place, and it really did actually become like that. And I'm really glad, because I was struggling during Corona. I was not sure if I was gonna stay open for sure.
Yeah. But no, I think it does work. Like I say, like that kind of hub. It works as a hub, because it's like when you're living in another country, not only Japan, but especially here in Japan, like people kind of come in waves, and you have the few regulars that are kind of always there. So there's like a few people that have been there longer term, but you sort of like the new waves of people come and go, and it's always very quick that we kind of establish a new kind of regular community of people. So it does obviously work as a hub to meet. So yeah, if you are traveling Osaka, it is a good place to meet people who can speak English, which is, you might be surprised to know, is actually quite difficult in Japan. And then it's also, it's quite fun to meet people from around the world, which is something I think I missed a lot for like the first year I was in Japan, because in the UK, I think it's something like 14% of the population are immigrants, whereas in Japan it is 2.7% of the population. There's 3 million immigrants in total in Japan, and there's over 120 million people. So it's very different. I guess America's the same, where it's very multicultural, and it's kind of that was something I found really fun going to university in the UK. Is like, you know, you can meet people from, I had friends from Malaysia, friends from India, friends from Poland, Venezuela, like, all across the world. And you sort of come to Japan and everyone is Japanese, which is cool. It's there's nothing wrong with that, but you lose that fun aspect you get of like a cosmopolitan, multicultural society. That's kind of the fun part of like Western or so European American cities especially. But talking of something being a bit different in Japan as well, so you mentioned that you're a cafe, but you're also a bar. Now, I don't know about America, but certainly in the UK, that's not a common thing. And it is a very common thing in Japan to have like what they call cafe bars. So it's both a cafe and a bar simultaneously. So why don't you tell us about why that is a prevalent thing in Japan and why you liked that idea for yourself, and maybe, just go into that in a little bit.
So this also, I would say, have two aspects to it. The first one would be the fact that Japanese society and the culture is very much alcohol centric. There's not a lot of people who don't drink alcohol. It's increasing, but really very much you can get alcohol almost anywhere. Compared to like America, if you drink, you can't drink in public. Here it's very easy. You don't have to hide or anything. You just go to the convenience store, grab a strong zero, and then just be drinking in front of the convenience, So, so it is very much because alcohol and like beer, maybe like chew highs, are such ingrained in the culture that kind of a good majority of the population does drink it. You just have it on the menu as a matter of fact, right? So that's the cultural thing. The other part of it is the business part of it is the cost. Now, a lot of people come to Japan because everything's so cheap, but really, a lot of our cost is going up, and if we're going to keep costs down, the only way we can increase sales is very much sell alcohol, because that's the highest margin, lowest cost that we can sell, right? Something like a chew high, which whether it's vodka or shochu, it's a very low cost, and it's much easier to drink that. I can drink 3 of those compared to like 1 coffee. Like I can't have 3 coffees in one sitting. Like that would not be good. I would have to go to the hospital. Probably not, but to be fair, well, yes, actually, all the coffee we sell at Cafe LA are all double shots. So if I drank 3 of those in one sitting, I'll probably be done. I'll be awake for like 24 hours. But but easy. Like if it's alcohol, I can drink like 10 chew highs and I'll be all right. I'll be still ready to go and be able to drink more, right? So like even if it's the same price, that's 10 times more, or like a lot more sales that you can make from that one menu item. So like people are used to having alcohol when they're having meals, so they can drink more than one, and it's a low cost, high margin product. Then like it's really a no-brainer. Now the other aspect of it is really there is no alcohol license. So if you're selling it in store, you don't need to apply for an alcohol license. Like if you're just serving it to the customer, they're gonna drink it there. It's a basic F&B license for a restaurant or a cafe, whatever. They're all pretty much the same. So once you have that license, you can sell alcohol, you can sell beer, you can sell cocktails, and really kind of not have to worry too much about getting money from the food, right? That's why a lot of foods are so cheap, because they're really relying on you to buy a lot of beers or like buy a lot of those like lemon sours or something like that. So that really they're making money off of that rather than the food, right? The food is just there to make you drink more, um, regardless of whether it's like uh, a restaurant or a cafe bar. So that's really the main thing, right? It's so easy to just sell alcohol because that's it pads your sales and everything. So America and pretty much anywhere else where you have to have like licensing and it's like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars just for that. Um, you would have to have a very very unique business just to get people to come and be willing to pay a significant amount of money for one drink, right? Like here, it's like you can get lemon sour for like 350 USD, easy, not a problem. You go to Kombini, it's maybe like $1. Like
Yeah.
what I say about So yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah. And then, well, on the theme of alcohol, I suppose that probably moves us on to your second venture, which is Subterra, which, for those of you that don't speak Latin, means under the earth. And why don't you tell us the story about? Well, maybe first you told us that it's the three of you joined together, but why don't you sort of imagine? I mean, I've been obviously, and I know the place well, but imagine I've never been there, and you've got to sort of let me know what's Subterra about. What will I find there? What makes it different than other cocktail bars in the area? And why? Yeah, why should I go to Subterra as opposed to I don't know, Bob's Cocktails down the road?
All right, so I would say Subterra is, we like to say Subterra is an art space. So whether it doesn't necessarily what you think art is, right? It could be cocktails is an art, mixology is an art, really anything of creative expression is an art, is how we like to define it. And so really we are there to kind of, that kind of space is what we want to encourage and raise awareness and that kind of space. Now, in terms of what we do there is, yes, our head bartender Deuce, also co-owner, and he's almost always there. So you drop by, he's almost gonna, you can't miss him. You're gonna be like, okay, that's Deuce. Like there's no way, like I don't even need to introduce. You walk in and be like, oh, okay, I think that's Deuce. But he's our resident alcoholic. He makes all of our signature drinks. From time to time, like staff or me, like I'll probably have an input or I'll think like, oh, I kind of want to make I have an idea for a really good drink, and then we'll play around. But so we sell craft cocktails and small snacks to go along with it. But we have like DJ nights, we have events, birthday parties, like all that stuff. And it is underground, as the cafe is always. I've not seen the sun for like 4 years. But yeah, so cocktail bar is what we are categorized as. We have a lot of events. It's kind of in between in terms of atmosphere and vibe. We are very much in between a club and a very like a quiet speakeasy cocktail bar, right? It's hard to find, so it is definitely on the lines of what a speakeasy would be, because you have to like go through the emergency exit, go down the stairs, and you'd be like, where am I going? There's no inclination that you're walking into a bar. You walk in and it's just like the walls are bare. Like we have pretty much a skeleton. The only thing that we really built is actually just the bar itself, and it's like super nice. It's just unpretentious, unfiltered, really good drinks, always a good time. I don't explain it very often, so it's better if you just ask Deuce and explain what it is. But yeah, I hope I explained that well enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard that the sound system's very good there as well.
Yes. You helped us do that. Yes, that's I would say actually, and I think you would also agree, is we probably have one of the best sound systems in even the clubs, right?
Yeah.
We have four touring grade speakers hanging from the ceiling, so they're on wires, right? They're not even on the floor, so there's no obstruction, or they won't be affected in terms of sound. And then we have two subs that are on both ends of the bar, and yeah, no, it's working really well, and yeah. Now the only complaint that I have, not that now I'm not complaining about the sound system. It's just that our sound system is so at like industry level that our DJs or like the people who come in and do like the live music and stuff, they don't know how to work it.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
yeah, yo, yes. To be fair, like we book a lot of grassroots people,
Yeah.
and yeah, like they're very good DJs, but they're not used to working like DJing a club or a bar that has a system like this.
Yeah.
Where it's like everything is like coded, and it's like this goes here, and you just need to plug this in, and then you're good. Like just
Yeah.
don't play around with the EQ or that much. Like
Yeah.
always have to check at the end of the night and be like, did they play around with the EQ? Because I have to like go and fix that shit. But yeah, it is a very future-proof system for sure. I don't think we need to upgrade it anytime soon, if anything.
Yeah.
Definitely better than all, if not most, bars, clubs around the area.
Yeah, I think so. 'Cause, I mean, I've heard other people that own, like I worked with someone briefly as well to improve their sound system, and like they also said the same thing, that they went to Subterra and it's like, it sounds so much better than our bar. So that was sort of helped.
Spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah. But I think it's worth it. I think people always like forget about it. It's not only bars, just like even in films and games and things. Sometimes I think people underestimate how important like a good sound is to the atmosphere. I mean, it's like if you had a film without like a bad film with a good soundtrack is probably more enjoyable than a good film with a terrible soundtrack. Because yeah, I think I don't know. For me at least, the sound is really important. So I think I think it sounds pretty good. So I'm glad you kind of put some budget aside to like make that work atmosphere. And
yeah, what was the movie recently, a few years? I think it was like Tenet or something like that.
yes,
Where it's like you can barely hear the dialogue and everybody was complaining, and that's like a whole part of the movie. Like that, the experience of the movie was that sound engineer is a part of the experience. But like when you're watching a movie like that, it's like I kind of want to hear what they're saying. But,
yeah.
Then you understand it's a part of the experience, right? Like that's how they engineered it to be.
But no, I think it is quite an important thing. So I think it is quite a good unique thing. And as you say, you do live, like you do the jazz nights now there and things like that, and DJs, and so it's like that is probably it's a unique thing that I think people wouldn't realize is a unique thing, is that it probably sounds, as you say, a lot better than like, because there are some bars where the music, they have these rubbish little Bluetooth speakers or something, and and even like karaoke places sometimes, and it's like the whole point of this is it's a music place, but it sounds terrible. So yeah, I think that is a unique point. And then, well, before we finish talking about your businesses, how about we sort of briefly touch on your sort of, as I say, your infant business, as you call it, the Storybook Cafe. So sort of, that's very new. It's kind of, it is open, right? But it's kind of, you're experimenting with getting it into a place you want it to be. But it's I think that's probably the most interesting part of a business's journey, is that initial stage of setting it up. So why don't you sort of talk us through what you are working on with it, and like what challenges you found, and how you've overcome some challenges, and like what you think the future holds for that business.
So it used to be called Pennenenemu. It's in Umeda, and the previous owner. So we purchased it from him because he wanted to retire. But it's been run for 15 years, and the theme is very much it's storybook. So storybooks, picture books. Uh, it's very much semantics, right? Like if you say picture books, it's probably more like younger, like babies, like and then storybooks. That's when you go into like maybe like 5 years old, maybe like up to like 12 or something like that. But um, really, you can imagine it as a library of storybooks, and then you just have a cafe in it. So really, you have the nostalgia, the magic, like all the stories of storybooks, and then you have like the warmth, and you have all the food, and you have all the themed concepts. We have like themed menus that are based on very specific like storybooks, and then you just it's very different from everything else. Like you walk in and it's just completely different world basically, and that's what we want to do. Like it's something that you want to travel back into your childhood, or you want to teach your kids. It's the storybooks that you've grew up with, or like you want to check out the new ones, whatever is like new in the market. So from time to time we buy new ones, and or you just want to get out of the city, right? Like, but you can't. You have like the hustle bustle in the city, and you just want to be like, I just want to go somewhere else where it's like I don't have to worry about it. Just sit down, just grab a book, and just be like go back to your childhood kind of thing. So it's a pretty. I love the concept. It's great. Um, Now the previous owner did it for 15 years. He It wasn't very profitable for him because it was his first business. He did it for 15 years, but because he's like always in the kitchen and doing all that stuff, it was he also DIY'd a lot of the stuff. So I kind of refused to break down most of those stuff because it has history. It has like that human touch to it. So um, like he didn't have an AC in the kitchen. He had the AC in the seating area for the customers, but there's no AC in the kitchen. And you know how hot it gets. Yo, this year I was melting in there. Oh my god. But so that was a big struggle. So it's cooled down a little bit, right? Like this past week because of the typhoon that just teased Osaka like there was no tomorrow. Like that was so bad. That's a whole nother story. But um, yeah, you know, uh, and it's cooled down, but really it's so hot in the kitchen because you have the flat top, you have like just like the microwave and stuff, and it's just all heating up the space. But that was a big struggle. Now we are definitely looking into getting a new AC to chill out that place, that room at least, the kitchen. But other than that, going forward, we're looking into really just like full immersion storybook stuff. Because even before they really only had maybe like two menu items that are kind of based off of it, off of storybooks. The first one is Guri and Gura, and that's probably one of the most famous ones for Japanese people because most people actually, if I were to, they would actually. I've talked to a few Japanese people and about it, and they don't know the name because the name is really hard to pronounce. It's a Pennenenemu, the old name. Now it's just called Storybook Cafe. But I'll be like, yeah, we like the Storybook Cafe is called Pennenenemu, and they're like, I don't know. And I'd be like, oh, it's in Osaka, and it's the one that has the pancakes from Guri and Gura, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, the Guri and Gura no hot cake, yeah, I've been there before, like 10 years ago. I'm like, oh, that's wild, like, yeah. So that it is very much famous. On Tabelog, it maybe has like 30,000 saves. So it's a lot of saves. It should be around there, 20, maybe 26 to 30,000. I haven't checked recently, um, but yeah. So going forward, we want to do more full immersion and then start doing like events, maybe like reading to like little children and stuff like that, do live readings, and then we have a few connections with actual um, writers, authors of picture books. So well, hopefully we can like run some events for like family friendly, like wholesome events for them, and for like obviously like the Gen Z millennials and like the newer generation, there'll be like more. They like the themed cafes. They like uh, Instagrammable stuff. Like yeah, we already had that. Like it's not like I'm doing that just for that, but it's just the fact that we're making everything inspired or based off of these storybooks. Like they inherently will be uh, picture friendly. Right? And then really the last demographics would be tourists who just want something that's unique, right? But it's very cultural because it's mostly Japanese books, but then you have Japanese versions uh of like the Hungry Caterpillar or like Curious George and stuff. So it's a very interesting vibe. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Eric Chen business empire. So if you are in Osaka, your 1 day itinerary, storybook cafe in the sort of maybe early afternoon, relax, book, drink, then head down to Shinsaibashi to Cafe LA, evening, maybe play some board games, and then night into the early morning, Subterra, drink lots of interesting cocktails, listen to some music on the very nice sound system that was expertly installed, and then when you're probably can't handle anymore, I think it closes at 2. Is it 2 or 1?
Subterra closes officially at 2, but it really depends on right like how many customers we have and what the vibe is. Sometimes we'll close early even with customers there because the customer's like, yo, we're gonna go to the club, and then like the staff will be like, yo, I'm gonna come with you. And then just close early and go.
So you basically
I don't do that.
Drink and party till you drop is the plan, and then stumble back to your hotel and repeat it all again the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you don't have a hangover. Drink the Uko no Chikara or the Heparize or something.
Yeah. Well, then you go to the storybook cafe to get over your hangover, ready for the next night.
Yes.
That's the plan. So there you go. So and fun for all the family. Brilliant. Well, with that we will take a short break, and then we will come back, and we're going to talk about the long production times in Bethesda's games, as a lot of people, not recently, but for the last, 10 years, have been discussing, things like when is Elder Scrolls 6 coming out. So we'll have a bit of a chat about what we think about that. There are some good points to it, I think, as well as obviously the obvious negatives. So we'll see you for that after the break. Welcome back to the Jouzu Gamers podcast. So, having discussed Eric's vast business empire across Kansai, we're going to now move on to a different kind of empire, which is the Bethesda game empire, and its rather lengthy game creation process. So obviously, I'm assuming anyone who's listening to this has played, or at least has heard of, games like Skyrim and Fallout, and what people often forget is that the last Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 5, came out in 2011, so we are sat here 13 years later, and 6 is in production. We know that. We still don't know when it's going to come out. There's speculation that it may be on the next generation of consoles, but so we thought we'd discuss what we think about that, and what are the good points of that, what are the bad points of that. So, Eric, why don't you kick us off and tell us, just generally, what are your thoughts about having such a long production time for games?
For me, I don't really follow these very often, and I'd rather keep it on the back of my head rather than just think about it all the time because it's not going to come anytime soon. So uh, I like the surprise factor. It's just like I'm just going about my day, and they're like, they released it, like they announced the new game, and then it'd be like, okay, that's good, like I was waiting for it, and now I can be excited about it, right? Because really, regardless of whether we're just talking about Bethesda, like there's so many other game studios that are releasing AAA games all the time, There's gonna be good games every single year coming out, so it's not necessarily that I have to really just be like a what's the word where you the keyboard blah blah blah, I don't know, yeah, just be online, just be like, why are they taking so long, like just typing it on comments and stuff. I'm not gonna waste my time to do that. Like I have better things to do with my time. So like I do like the surprise factor of it, and I'd rather them take their time and create a really good game, right? So if I'm gonna spend that, right, like right now, the standard isn't even $60 anymore. It's like 80. And like if I'm gonna spend that much money, I'd rather them put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into making this game. Uh, Now, when you're talking about decades, then like you're gonna, right. You go from, it's like, yeah, it's gonna be 10 years later. You're gonna get Elder Scrolls 6. I'm like, all right, well, in the meantime, there's gonna be good games come out. So like, we have like Wukong and stuff like that just came out recently, but so, and like Elden Ring and stuff like that, right? So there's gonna be games that in the meantime that you don't really have to worry about them being slow, and you will have something to spend your time on.
So it sounds like for you it's not a big deal really then the long waits, but and I think I agree with what you're saying. I think, like you said, it does make it more of an event. So like when a new Bethesda game's released, like whether that is a Fallout game or a Elder Scrolls game, or obviously Starfield now, which didn't do so well, but when they do release a game, it is kind of such a rarity that it is an event. It's kind of like, oh, they're releasing another game. Like maybe a good analogy to that is like in films. I remember when I was young and the Star Wars prequels came out, and it was it like 99 to I think 2006 or 7. The third one came out, so that's it's like an 8 year gap, 8 year time frame for 3 films, whereas when the Disney started doing it recently, it's like literally every year there was a Star Wars film, because they do the like standard episodes and then the in between ones, and it felt less special because like, I remember the first one came out, I was quite excited. I didn't hate The Force Awakens. I thought it was it was a decent film, and it was quite exciting just to go see a new Star Wars film at the cinema, but coming out every year, yeah, that kind of surprise, that kind of like, oh, there's like this is a unique thing. You do lose that a bit. So I think I agree with you on that. The other thing you said about, yeah, there is other games in the genre coming out. So yeah, you had things like other RPGs. I think is true. Although I do think the flip side to that is that like I do think their games have like a unique itch that they scratch that I don't think other games do scratch as well. But the good thing is that because they take such a long time, they do tend to put a lot of stuff in their games. So, like, I got Skyrim around the time it came out, and I played it a lot for years after it came out, and you'd still find new things to discover, and like you could play in different ways, and obviously with modding that brings new life into the games. Like recently there was the Fallout London mod for Fallout 4. Which I haven't tried yet because I haven't got Fallout on my computer. I've got it on the PlayStation, but people are saying that that's really well done, and it kind of breathes new life into the game and gives you a totally new area and quests and things to do. So like that aspect does make their games last the length of time. But like now I've played Skyrim a lot, and it's not fresh really anymore for me because I've played it so much. So I agree that like it's okay, but like 13 years is a long time, and the other downside to it is the longer you wait, you get more anticipation. So when they do announce like, oh, it's coming out, like the good news is, like you say, it's going to be really exciting. It's like, oh, it's finally coming out. I'm really excited to play it, and I guess they're going to make quite a lot of money from the initial sales. But the expectation is going to be so high, because if you've waited, I mean, it's not going to be 30, it's going to be probably like 15, 16, maybe coming up to 20 years waiting for this game to come out. And if it's not that good, that's going to be so disappointing. So that's the risk. Like, they have to pull this game off when it comes out. Because like Starfield coming out in the middle, which didn't get as well received as their other games have, like that adds in that bit of worry. Like, what if Elder Scrolls 6 is another like Starfield experience where people liked the concept but didn't think the execution really worked? That would be so disappointing to have waited that long. But I do agree with you that them putting the time in they have made really good games. I know some people don't like there are people who say they don't like what they did with Fallout 3 compared to 1 and 2, and New Vegas is often held as being a better game than 3 by a lot of people. But I still think 3 was really good. And I remember when it came out at the time, I think it hasn't aged as well as New Vegas. I will accept that. But at the time, I played that loads. And again, you could spend hours searching all the different places and finding new little things that they'd put in. And that, that wasn't a multi-decade development. That was a few years. And then Fallout 4 was... I can't remember when Fallout 4 came out off the top of my head, but I think it was less than 10 years gap, but it was close to 10 years probably. Or it may have been less, I can't remember, but it was, it was a few years gap. And Fallout 4, they went a very different direction. Some things I think didn't work as well, but there were some really cool aspects to it, and I replayed it again recently and enjoyed it more than I think I did at the time it came out. So I think it's okay, but what I wish they would do more of is like they did with New Vegas. They got a third party to make another it's a New Vegas isn't sort of a like numbered entry, but it's like another entry in the franchise. It kind of tides over the weight. They sort of did that with, I suppose, Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76, but because they're multiplayer, they don't have the exact same. They don't scratch that same itch. They're a bit of a different experience. And again, Fallout 76 had a bit of a shaky start, though apparently it is a lot better now. I haven't played it. I did play a bit of Elder Scrolls Online, and again, it was kind of fun, but it doesn't feel the same as mainline Elder Scrolls game. So that could be a way they could pad out, like fill in the gap a bit. But there is the flip side, is the way a lot of other studios do it now. For example, like Activision with the Call of Duty franchise, where it's literally like, I think it's pretty much every year there's a new Call of Duty, or maximum like 1-2 years. So what do you think about that kind of cycle, like the flip side? So what are your thoughts on like them every year you're going to get a new Call of Duty or a new, whatever. Like, what do you think about that style? What are the benefits to that compared to the Bethesda way of having the long cycle, and what are the downsides?
I would say it depends on the type of game it is, right? Like you have Call of Duty, which is very much FPS, playing multiplayer online, focused, compared to something like Elder Scrolls, where it's very much like story based, and it's very much the content of itself is more important than like how you play it. Right? For Call of Duty, where it's tried and true, they're not going to change how it's played because it's first person shooter. You're not going to change much, right? You're really just creating new maps. You're creating a new story, and most people don't even go through the storyline and just go straight into straight into playing online with their friends, or just right, like just online play, right? So it's a doable thing. Now I would say it is very much a money grab in terms of, right, like there's not much change from one generation to next if you're going to be putting out so much every single year. Really the only difference is the skins, right? You're not really changing anything. You're not creating something that will overturn the industry or something like that, right? So uh it is, but I would have to say it is good for newer players. So people who want to like, kind of jump in, and you have everybody on the same starting line if you're jumping into a new game, right? If you have a game that's like already 10 years running, and you jump in and you just have like hardcore players playing the whole time, and then you trying to jump into the game and they're like, what are you doing? Like, get out of our game, you know? So having that type of game where it's a FPS, like just like new one every single year, it's very good for newer players for sure. Not very much for older players, of course, because then you just spent so much time building their ranks or whatever on this one game, and now they came out with a new one, and now you have to do it all over again. So that's the downside. I don't really play those games, so um, I would say my opinion is very biased.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and for yeah, so I think that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, I think I kind of agree with everything you said. That, I mean, I do play Call of Duty. I haven't played the newer ones, but I played, like, I used to play them a lot, especially when I was at school and they were very big. And I do sort of think that they, like, I think you're right. They don't really do anything revolutionarily different each time. It is kind of, roughly what you're going to get. They're usually very well made, and they usually, I think as like first person shooter, like online first person shooters go, like apart from obviously, like there are other options like Counter-Strike things that for like the more hardcore players, but for like you want a casual first person shooter game, you can play online with friends. Like it's very like sleekly made, and it works very well. It's got tons of players, so you don't have to wait forever to find a game. And I think you're right, like having the yearly updates helps keep that player base up because you can attract new players every year. What they do now, I think, is that the newer games do share the same online. So I think you can carry on some unlocks now, which used to be a downside, like you said, that you do 10th prestige or whatever, and then another game comes out and you're back to the beginning. So they have, I think, now made that like all one thing, and also they have Warzone, which is like a separate thing, but that's also connected to the games a bit. Like they've kind of tried to combine them a bit, which is nice. So I think you don't have to buy the newest game to keep playing with people, as far as I understand. But yeah, it is kind of almost like a reskin of the same game. They did briefly try and change things up. This is a while ago now when they did, was it like Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare, where you had like zero-G suits and you could like run on walls, and it was like futuristic Call of Duty. But I like looking back. I remember playing it with a friend near the end of university, and neither of us had at the time we played it. I sort of fell off playing the Call of Duty games around that time anyway, and then got back into them a bit later. So I was like replaying that, and I think it was kind of cool and different, but it certainly doesn't feel the same as your standard, boots on the ground, as people like to say, Call of Duty game. So I think they kind of gave up on trying to be revolutionary. They're saying that Warzone obviously like has come along and become a massive thing, although obviously Fortnite really and PUBG pioneered that genre of game. But I don't play Warzone because I don't like Battle Royale games, really. I quite like watching people play them. That's like a genre I do enjoy watching, but playing them I've never got into because you just like wander around hiding in a house for 20 minutes and then someone just instantly kills you and then that's it, the game's over. It's not very fun unless you're really good at it. So yeah, I think so. Compared to the Bethesda thing, I suppose the good thing is the hype maybe never goes with Call of Duty games, but I don't think, like you said, I rarely feel like, apart from when they did like the new Modern Warfare, when that first came out, people were quite excited because they were revisiting the Modern Warfare trilogy was really well liked. So that was kind of a special event, but generally speaking, you don't get people like so hyped about a new Call of Duty game because it's just like, yeah, of course there's another one. It's, the year has ticked over, so we're due one. Whereas, as you say, like when Elder Scrolls 6 does come out, like people are going to be really excited for it. So that's, I suppose that's the downside. You don't get that, like the peak of the hype is lower, but it's maybe more consistent. Obviously, from a business point of view, I mean they make loads of money, so they're doing great, and they fill it with loads of loot boxes, which is probably a topic for another podcast.
Yeah.
But so business-wise, I get it, but as a player, I think I agree with you. I think maybe having the longer, like spending longer, making it really good, and putting loads of stuff in, I prefer. And there is stuff in between that you can play, but I do wonder if it is a bit too long when we're talking about almost 2 decades between games.
Yeah.
But do you have what are your final thoughts to close off this segment with?
I do not, off the top of my head. I would say I do not.
Okay, so there we go. That means we've covered everything. So with no more to say, we will stop talking and see you next time on the next episode of the Jouzu Gamers podcast with me, James.
And me, Erik.
Thank you for listening.